This is the final edit of the Wild Horse Black and White series from October. I have been working on this for almost 2 months, just a little bit out of time. I'm super excited to finish this series. I think that this image is great. It's very cinematic. It's shot from the shadow profile of the horse. We do have a very bright highlight right here. It's a little burnt. I probably could have shot faster. I shot at 1001 over 1250 at a aperture of 7.1 and 250 millimeter focal length. It is a great image, in my opinion. It has the full body of the horse, the tail's not cut off. There's enough space you can feel like the horse has somewhere to go, direction. The water is splashing. There's a little motion blur right here. Once again, I think I could have shot it a little faster. This data right here, that's pure white. It's burnt out. But I think that when I turn this into a black and white image, it's gonna look really good. This is just the initial switch to black and white. This is unedited, and you can see what we have is we have the background that's a little blur, then we have the foreground, and we have this mid ground that's in focus with the horse and the water. Those are kind of the sections of this photo. And right now, if you look at the water, the splashing water underneath the horse, it blends in a lot with the water that is in the river water. And the horse's face blends in with the background. What I'm going to do in this edit is I'm going to separate, the goal is to separate the horse, turn it into a more smooth silhouette, lower some of these highlights, and lower the highlights in the water so we get some more detail, and also separate the splash from the static water of the river. The goal with the background, just looking at it, is we do have this really nice black shape that it blends into the horse's chin. And you can see right here, we lose the neck a little bit. So the trick with this edit is going to balance, what I've been really learning in this last editing series is balancing exposure, is having a plan for what are the layers and what do I want to be the darkest. I have a question when I say that, which is, well, should the background be the darkest or should the silhouette of the horse be the darkest? And I think it's a question. I'm going to experiment with it to see, but I already feel like this image, when I do the work in the water, from what I've seen in the other images, I think this image is really going to pop. We're going to want a little bit of a vignette at the end of this image, but for now, it looks really good as it is. We're gonna go to a 16:9 just to look at it. I want to see how it feels because we have a lot of space as a 4:3. I'm shooting on a Panasonic GH5 and it has a crop sensor, so we're dealing with a 4:3 ratio. And as you can see, we may lose some of that foreground by turning it into 16:9, but it does still have a lot of depth, and the horse really is large in frame, which what I have found with photography is the answer to a more interesting picture is having the subject larger in the frame. Now from here, I'm going to do experimentation with the global settings. We got, the exposure, the contrast, highlight, shadows, whites and blacks, and then the exposure curve. What I found is by experimenting with the globals, it highlights the limit of what we should do and what some of our goals should be when we get into the specific areas using masks. It helps me formulate a plan. So I experiment in global, and then go into the masks and attack each section by itself. I already know, just looking at this, that I want this foreground to be much darker. I want this background to be darker. I'm gonna rescue the highlights and the splash, and I'm gonna try to rescue this burn as much as possible on the horse. And that's it's amazing how I haven't done a ton of black and white editing, but even just doing a short series of the same subject matter in the same, it has allowed me to learn how to do this. So that's the key with photography, is always be experimenting. Your goal is to take pictures and edit them, and the editing is just your opportunity to express them. Express your emotions through how you edit it. That's why I'm choosing black and white, because to me, black and white captures the texture of the splashed water. It captures the magic of that moment. The little drops in the air really pop, and that contrast to me highlights the elegance and beauty of the horse. I think the horse turning into a silhouette makes it look mystical. It captures that feeling of grace and power that horses naturally have. This is a wild horse living on the lower Salt River. I have a comment on one of my shorts where someone says, "No way, that's a real horse." I think that's becoming more common. People are just questioning what's real and what's not, but I promise you this is real. And if you come to Arizona and you are in the Phoenix metropolitan area, you can go paddleboarding with wild horses, practically with them. Sometimes you'll pass right by them. Try to stay within out of 50 feet to give them their space. They are wild, so you never know what they're gonna do. But let's start experimenting with these global settings. We're gonna see how much we can save from the highlights by bringing down the exposure, and I'm not gonna set it this far, but I just wanna see what it looks like. You see how I'm loving the way this looks, but I'm hating the way the horse disappears. That's why this is the experimental phase, is it shows how quickly the water can be saved, and you see this is a lot of motion blur on the water. That's a little disappointing, but to be expected. So this completely hides the horse, but it shows that even at negative 2.86, you have these really bright highlights in the water. And this shoulder of the horse, this is just barely starting to look like something. Well, it's starting to look like a normally exposed section of the image. And so we're going to have a lot to work with in regards to the brightness within the water and in that shoulder section. Those will be separate masks for sure. But what can we do? I really love the way this looks when it turns into a darker gray. To me, it really separates it from the splash. And so I will be going to negative 0.5 to just get it started, a standard. I will want this to stay dark, and I will want this gray to be a lower gray than this. I kind of want this gray in the background to match this bokeh'd water, and then this will be a different mask. That will be a little bit darker. Now, raising contrast will help bring shape to some of the drops and some of the motion. And if we raise it all the way, you can see it becomes like scratchy to the eye. So in this global edit, I don't need to raise the contrast too high. Now the highlights are going to attack the water and this chest, the most, they're going to affect that. And we could lower the highlights. Now, one thing I learned that works best is, while this is nice to see, the problem is this is not a gradual, there's no slope to this. That's where the curves comes in. When you're messing with your highlights, you're gonna wanna add a point here, and then by lowering the highlights here, you're naturally lowering everything around. So I find that it's better to use the curves to adjust your whites and your highlights, because then it creates a more gradual effect in your image. And that's why you create a point. So while the slider adjusts globally and specifically the highlights, I find that to create a more natural balance is to use the curves. Let's review this. I'll just reset this just to make sure that we don't taint our editing process. I find that following the same flow every single time helps me manage how I edit, so that I don't get confused at what I've done and what I haven't done. So I try to keep everything in the same sequence. Now for highlights globally, we're gonna lower this just a little bit, and then shadows. Let's move on to shadows. Now shadows is gonna be very cool because it could reveal the belly, some of this leg, the face, and the neck, which is one of the main problem areas that we have right now. Is the shape of the neck is completely lost in the darkness of the background. And so will shadows reveal that? Let's find out. So I went the wrong direction. I'm like, it doesn't look like it's getting better. I think every photographer does that. You want to raise the shadows or bump up, go to the right, make a positive number to see how it reveals. And this is going to help me make a plan for the edit on the horse. Particularly, we have to decide if one thing it's interesting to look at is what we see just by bumping to 100%. We see more details in the horse, right? The horse has more shadows on it, but the background still has this darkness. It did add a little bit more shape to this darkness, which I don't actually like. But one thing to know is that this is still the darkest. This is the darkest part on the image, according to my visual looking, right? And while we're editing global, so by raising the shadows globally, we're not actually creating much separation between this section and this section, which is one of the main reasons to raise the shadows. And I also I really don't like how it makes the body look splotchy versus a silhouette, an elegant silhouette, which is what I want it to look like. That's what I've done in the previous images. So I am definitely not going to raise the shadows too much globally. It doesn't give me much value to do that, and it affects the edit too much. I do like how when we raise the shadows, it makes this line appear. That's something is, can we do that when we're using the mask though? Lowering the shadows, we get the pop of the drops. I just don't think I'm going to touch the shadows in a global environment. In fact, it's making me question if I should have done this at all, either. So that's kind of what I've learned from this whole editing process, is that the vast majority of it I'm going to be doing in the masked edits. It's just, or in the curve. I'd rather do it in the curve than do it in the global settings. At least the curve gives some gradual connection between the highlights and the whites and the blacks and the shadows. That's what we have here. We have blacks, we have whites, right? That's the spectrum. And then you have highlights, shadows, and midtones. And we are going to lower the whites because the drops of water are really hard to get. I did find in my last edit that like you can create a mask to get them, but I still feel that because the majority of the horse is in black and only the highlighted parts are in the white, it's safer to do this as a global edit. Now, this brings the splash more aligned with the foreground. And in my opinion, we're actually losing the power of the splash. But if you notice, we go back and forth, right? Make it look weird. By making it look weird, I'm seeing that this section right here is being affected when I'm trying to affect just this splash. And which means that no matter how I tweak it, it's gonna look a little off or a little blended in with this background, which is just the main reason why I'm like, that's why these images are so difficult to edit, because you're dealing with a complex dynamic image that has really bright brights, really dark darks, and subjects that you want to edit completely differently. And in the day, I've talked about this before, back in the day, they used to use tape and pencils to separate their subjects and edit and expose the image differently. Now we use a computer. So I'm not cheating. All right. Now, one thing we have learned in this exploration is that the colors, by using the color mixer, we can target similar objects that are the same color, and we can adjust the image based upon that. There's not going to be a lot of red in this image. It was mostly greens, yellows, blues, right? And browns. And brown is going to be orange. So even if we just go back and forth, you can see that red is in the hair of the horse. And it looks like it's actually really in the highlights. It's like the secondary highlights is what I would call it. So we're going to raise those just a little bit because I do want some contrast. Now, oranges, the horse was very brown. So you're going to see, interestingly, that's affecting so much of the splash because dirt got in there and dirt is brown, right? That's like dirty water. We could raise that up. It just, yeah, it's not worth affecting in a global setting. Moving on, yellows. So the water, the calm water is reflecting the mesquite trees, and this is a mesquite tree right here. And mesquite has a lot of yellow in the leaves, especially this time of year as it gets colder. And I do like the water being darker, so I don't have a problem lowering this. I don't want to lower it to the point where you can't see what's there, because then the horse disappears, but I will lower it to -20. That creates a little bit of distinction without overwhelming the image into a giant blob. Okay, greens. It's kind of the same thing. we could create a more 3D element. This is where style comes in, for example, is if you want your greens to be brighter and you can see how we can make this tree a little fluffier by raising, you know? Do you see that? What I mean is you have a choice. Are you trying to make the background just a complete dark, uh, a non-textured thing, or are you trying to create some sort of contrast and layers? I do think it's interesting. The only section that's really being affected in the water by the greens is right here. I'm just scanning the water to see if there is anywhere else. It's really just this reflection right here. So if we raise the greens, does that create a more 3D shape to this tree? Now aqua. Is aqua going to affect the water? Aqua is not affecting anything really. It's not even worth looking at. Okay, you see the blues. Wow. This is where the tricks, this is how we explore the image and we try to find different settings that'll allow us to separate those drops. And this is how we do it without having to go manually in. And then this will be, I think this is too far, you know, but look at how it makes those drops pop out. Amazing. It's interesting how colors, when we're looking at an image to edit, we're looking at groups of colors. It's interesting how, you know, objects share groups of colors. This is the moving water versus the levee? No. Oh, I can't. No. Eddy? No. And when the water moves slower in a little section, a little pool, I forget what that's called. Oh well. Anyways, doesn't matter. It's just, the world is separated by colors. Interesting, purple is in the splash. It must be the light hitting off, or maybe a mixture of the dirt hitting it. I'm just gonna lower it just a tad, and then magenta. Once again, not really worth editing. We're not gonna do color grading. Textures. Let's look at texture itself. We can remove the harshness of the splashes. The problem is as we raise texture and everything, it can be too much. So I'm only gonna do 3. And then clarity. Because this is global, I'm only gonna do 2, and then dehaze. Dehaze will bring some darkening to this. Darkening. It will darken the image a little bit. And what I really like the dehaze is doing is that it's darkening right here. But I feel like we're losing the leg of the horse a little bit. And if we haze it up, the horse kind of Interestingly, if we haze it up, the horse pops out more because everything turns more gray. If we dehaze, the horse blends in with the background. So I think when I use a mask, I might use dehaze here, but I'm not going to use dehaze on the background because it makes the horse blend in more. Vignette, I definitely like a darkening vignette versus a lighting vignette. To me, this looks like heaven, like a memorial. I don't want that. Oh, this is real life. I definitely love a vignette on this image. We'll go to -5. Grain is going to help with some of these gradients. These parts of the image that are the drops are so sharp and help the eye feel like they're not being assaulted by these really sharp images. I'm gonna go to 40 and then we'll go to denoise and look at that, and then we'll make adjustments on if we think it was too much or too little. I don't notice too much of a difference. The background looks a little smoother. Sharpening. Okay, the beauty with sharpening is because we can bump it. I'm probably going to bump it to there, and then I'm going to look at the mask. I'm going to really focus on just sharpening. We're just sharpening the horse and the splash, really. So if you notice, when I was here, it strangely just looks like the water is being sharpened, and it's too like everything's sharp right here in the splash, but then nothing else is sharp. And by raising it up, so I'm actually going to raise it up and lower it because I want it to feel cohesive and it's being a little too chopped. Okay, so that is the global settings of this black and white image. We're now going to start doing the masks, the great and evil masking. We have four main masks. We have the background, foreground, horse, and then the splash. The way we're going to do each of those, we have decisions to make on how we're going to do each of those. If we can do it start back to front. So if you do the background, we'll see what the auto mask does. Yeah, I don't agree with this, so I'm going to subtract, and I'm just going to use a brush. And I'm going to go here, and I don't really need that much of a feather because it's pretty. You can see an obvious line in the water from the true background to my eye. And this section is going to take way different editing than this section. They're two different things. I do agree with the way the horse has been cut off. I might touch up some of that later, but right now I don't need to worry about it because I'm just going to cut the legs off anyways. So we're going to show the overlay and then make sure density is all the way up, and we're going to just start brushing. And I'm going to be quiet so I can fast forward this for you. Okay, so that has selected the mask really well. And as I said, when dealing with the shadows and the highlights, I find the curve is a much better tool. I'm going to turn off the overlay because I already know we're only affecting this area now, and I've added the dots to the curves. And now we could decide to raise the shadows. And as we raise the shadows, you see, if we raise the shadows all the way, we have now turned the horse into the darkest thing. You see how this is gray and then that is black? And then we've recovered the neck. This tells us that there is an opportunity to recover the neck. Not like this, but there is an opportunity. So we're gonna figure this out. I'm gonna leave that here and then I'm gonna see, yes, okay. That's what I was wondering is, you notice how it's the blacks are right next to the neck. So all we really want is the blacks to be raised a tinge higher than the neck. Not like this is gray. I don't want them gray like this. But if we raise them a little bit, we can save the neck of the horse. And we want to do it at a point where now I have to look at these things a bunch of different ways. Especially with my reflection in the monitor, with the lights on. We want to be sure. I think this is good for the exposure. What we have is exposure hierarchy. This black is no longer absolute black. The horse is the darkest thing in the image at this point, and I think we're gonna find the horse will get slightly darker even as we fix these highlights. And so we might find the neck is even more recovered when we specifically edit the horse. But this is a great place to be at. Now, textures. We have the textures of the leaves. The mesquite tree, the leaves are like the size of my pinky nail. They're tiny little leaves. And so they create all this little texture. And I'm shooting on a telephoto lens. I think I shot at like 200 millimeters. 250. Okay, so I shot at 250. So why I bring this up is that the background's in bokeh. It's blurred, right? And how we do the effects will affect how that blur looks. Like, do we want the blur to be extra crispy? Do we want to get rid of all that crisp and make it extra smooth? The way we would do that is lower texture, lower clarity. And there's people that have developed a style of photography where they do that. One thing you notice, the line created by the mask, you can see it. So that's why, to me, My goal with this image and this series is to show a horse on the river. So I don't really want to get rid of all the texture of the leaves. It's just a personal preference. It's my decision as the photographer. This is my expression. As I raise clarity, it brings a weird whiteness to these leaves. I don't really like that. As I raise haze, as I dehaze the background, it makes it darker. As I lower haze, it helps separate the horse. Or as I haze the image, it helps separate the horse a bit. I'm gonna lower clarity. And I am gonna add a tinge of green, but I'm gonna go back to the curve, and I'm gonna lower the highlights so that they are just barely above, because I don't want to call attention to the background. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to do. This is the background to me. Effects, we could lower sharpening. It seems counterintuitive. We just raise the texture, but it will make the individual blotches a little less sharp. So it's like more blotches with the texture, but then by lowering the sharpness, those blotches won't be so squarey. And that's the background for now, right? I reserve the right to change that as much as I want later. Let's create a new mask, and we're gonna edit the horse. I heard that by using the object tool, you get a better mask than by using the subject tool. So I'm just gonna follow the outline of the horse as much as possible. I kind of feel like a kindergartner tracing at this point. And I am going to eventually mask out that chest piece and try to make it look more recovered. Just gonna make sure we get these hairs, and then I'm gonna see if it, not bad at all, right? Let's zoom in here. Wow, that's pretty freaking impressive. Holy cow, that's impressive. I am gobsmacked. That's so impressive. Even this speckledness is pretty amazing. Okay. Oh, no. I'm going to show the overlay, and then we're going to do brush. Trust me, you want the overlay showing before you hit the subtract tool, because it can get a little wonky if you don't do that. And I'm just gonna fix some of this weirdness. I don't want a halo right here. I want a clear line. So if I want to zoom in even more, I'm gonna go down here, and we're gonna take this out. I'm gonna be quiet so I can speed up. That's my new thing I'm learning how to do, just so that some of these editing videos get done faster for you. Y'all don't need to watch me scrub away at this image. So just to take a little bit of a break from scrubbing. My hand starts to hurt. I do want to talk about my goal with these images and why I'm making this series is when I watch all my favorite YouTube photographers, I see them go on these adventures I can't afford. They go on to these places I don't know if I'll ever be able to go to. And they take these images I don't know how they take. And they peel back a little bit, but I thought that by showing these editing videos comprehensively, I could really show my process behind and my growth, my journey with this. Um, what is the journey? What is the goal? My goal is I've coined the term to myself, just to quickly say it, is I want to be a poet photographer. I want to create images that when you see them, you feel something and it beckons to a memory. I've been in photography for years, and you can create images that serve a purpose, and you can create and that purpose for me is what I love is I see images that make me feel something, and that's my goal. So thank you for watching this. Thank you for helping me on this journey. And I'm being very detailed and I'm showing a lot in the hope that it demystifies, but at the same time shows that I've taken care and that I've taken the time to think about each of these different things and how it affects the emotion or the expression of the emotions that I'm trying to share with people. And thank you for watching. Back to it. I also write poetry, and one of the themes that keeps coming up is that, I literally wrote it today, is just all I am doing in life is saying that I like this and I want to do more of this. I like them and I want to be with them. Anything beyond that is not that. That's just a little theme that happens a lot in my poetry, I find, is just, or like my thoughts and my journaling is just, I'm just doing what I like. I'm just being with the people that I like. I'm just talking about the things that I like. And I just want to do more of that. And so I'm creating these videos in the hope that it leads to a way for me to do more of this. That's all I can hope for. Put it out there and hope that somebody identifies with it. I hope it helps you. I really do hope it helps you. Do more, see more, feel more. I just want to like point out how crazy it is that AI got this right. Like it got this hoof, the hair on the hoof so well. That's crazy. In 10 years, it's gonna be crazy how fast we can edit. One thing I noticed is that right now I'm just doing the subtraction mask. I I will add things, but also some of the highlights will just have to be their separate mask. So I'm not going to worry about making sure that's perfect. I just want the main body of the horse in this mask.
I don't know why it's doing that.
Yay! We have the horse mask. Woohoo! Okay, let's go at this. We're gonna go curves, highlights, shadows, blacks, and we're gonna turn that off. And then we're gonna make sure we're doing this. And let's interpret this image. Let's start with the whites. We don't actually want white on this image at all. What this is doing is it's leveling out the face a little bit. And you notice the difference between it being a white versus a gray is I do want texture. I do want it to feel furry. I don't want it to be a dead gray with no details. This is where the big question is you see how the curve right here raises the midtones. So what could we do to control the shadows more and keep the midtones from rising up too much is adding a point. Is this adding magic to the image? And then blocks. Because as you remember, I said I want the horse to be the darkest thing in this image. And so by lowering the blocks, we guarantee that it's going to be the darkest thing in this image. You could raise them up just to look, right? It turns gray. Ugh, ugly, right? But notice how it brings out those drops. It really makes the horse separate from that background, which is the goal. I don't like how bright this is still. That will be a different mask. This has texture with a little bit of glow. Not too much though. This has really brought out these drops right here, which I love. I'm going to move on to the next mask. And for ease, I'm going to do a linear gradient. And we're gonna, before we do this, we're gonna zoom out a little and we're gonna go here. That didn't work, my bad. Just Control Z, baby. No, we're making a new mask. Linear gradient. Clip it. And I'm gonna make it gradual, and then I'm gonna move it. And this is gonna be real easy. I'm just creating a vignette effect. Isn't that so much more beautiful? Like, you wouldn't want to go here because it makes it the same color of the horse, right? This is where learning, I think -0.48 is the highest. I'm gonna go -40 because to me, this makes the water look deeper, more placid, it looks more reflective. And I love it. I love the way this looks. I love the way the background looks. I like the way the horse looks right now. It's this mid gray zone that is not, it's not vibing for me right now. It looks, I don't like the way it looks. So we're gonna do a luminance range. And we're gonna lower it. We're gonna click show luminance map. Ooh. Okay, okay. We're trying to get it so that yeah, you see how we just separated the splash? We're at 96. And then from this end, we're gonna separate the background and the horse. Just curious. Now I'm gonna use a brush to subtract. I just don't want anything above the waterline. I don't want the horse being edited at all. And truth be told, I'm kind of wondering if maybe I should, well, we're gonna look. This is one of those instances where I might want to do it different than what I thought. I'm gonna feather this a little bit more. I just don't want there to be a clear border. And the crispier the border, the more obvious it is when you do an exposure edit. So I want this to be very kind of gradual. Welcome to experimentation time. Do we keep the foreground in or do we subtract it? Find out right now. Ugh, look at what it's done to the foreground. Oh no. Oh, I'm just looking at if it's doing what I want in the background. Oh, it's so bad. Cannot have it. I don't like it. I really only want the flow of the water. The flowing water. I don't want really anything else. I'm going to remove the feather. I'm going to make this fit. I might have screwed up right there. Okay. These are a little worrisome, the splotches, but just look at it. Raise it up to the point where it looks natural. So it's just -1 stop. That is the flowing river mask. Good beans. You see the crisp right there? How do we fix this crisp going on? I'm going to use a add mask. I'm just gonna add him. Okay, we want much less density. So that there's not that weird crispiness. And then we're gonna look at it. Much better, right? Then we got rid of those weird splotches. Okay. No mask. Zoom out. Look at it. Okay. So we got the river flow edit. I think this looks pretty good. Can we look at the whole thing? The highlights are definitely in the water, the splash. This looks pretty amazing right now to me. There are a few things I'm going to work on. What we have left to do is we have the edit of the splash itself. We want to, right now it's very blotchy, but I think that we can recover some of the detail in the movement of these big water so that it looks more watery. And then the last other two things is I want to fix this and this. I want this to be the brightest part on the horse and this to be a little bit darker. Those are the only things I see left to do. So the debate is looking at the splash. Right now, the splash in the context of the entire image is definitely the brightest thing. And that's not wrong. That's right, but it's so much white and it's so bright that it looks separated. So I wanna fix it, and let's make a mask. We're gonna do another luminance range, and this time I already know I'm going up, and we're gonna show the luminance mappy map, and we're gonna go up, because my bet is that we can get most of, if not all of, just the splash. Interesting. Let's look away from this. Okay. We're going to turn on the mask like that. And I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to subtract. Oh, density is down. That's why. Okay. I'm going to subtract. I did not make this mask correct. The pink is what I want. The red is... I'm going to delete this mask. I'm going to try again. Oh, well. Do you see that? You're always going to be finding mistakes. Okay. Let's make another mask. Let's make another mask. And we're going to go high. I wish I could zoom in right here. Can I type in? And then I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to subtract some of these just the water in the background. And the horse is another thing I don't really want. Uh, I really wish they made this a number. I don't know. Okay. I'm subtracting the pool of water as much as possible while leaving the drops of water as much as possible. Ah. This is why you don't just hold down the brush tool, because you're gonna be having to fix it. That's reflection. I have to fix that. Decisions. Okay, I definitely don't want the horse. As much as I think that section needs to be fixed, it needs to be looked at separately than with. Okie doke. Let's look at this exposure. We're just gonna mess with the slider just to get a visual acuity. Yeah, ugly, right? Ugly. This is why the slider is not gonna be a solution, except for the most minute. It just too sweeping of a change. In this particular instance, we're messing with this curve, and what we're trying to do is add a little bit more detail to that water, but it's really the smallest of changes that we're trying to add. We don't want the water to completely fade. We're trying to separate it. And I'm a big believer, if you haven't noticed, in this isn't math, this is art. You're doing it according to how you feel. And we're gonna go to the effects And we're gonna add some grain. And we're gonna chuck dehaze. I'm so intense on this right now, it's hard to describe. I don't want this to turn into a pixelated mess. I don't want, like, I know what I don't want, and I know I might have kind of done that on my last image. And the first one in the series turned out so well, but the water was so clumped, it kind of worked. But this, we have dots and then we have clumps, dots and clumps. And the dots, they can be white. And on the clumps, you want this whiteness. You don't want the white, though, turning into... You don't want the white turning into... Well, I said clumps already, but I mean, it's like you don't want it melding in. And so I did, like, when I upped the clarity, it did bring out a little bit distinction. We're gonna tad up the texture. The problem with texture is I'm scared it turns it into that pixel feel. I don't want it to look like I went in and made pixels appear. I want it to feel fluid in the moment. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to take a break. I'm going to look at this. I've done some subtle edits and I'm going to go away and look at something else and then come back. I highly recommend you do the same thing when you're editing. I've decided, like, in my other edits, I've been doing them from start to finish in one go. And this edit, I said, no, I'm gonna be okay with stopping and I'm gonna be okay with taking a break so that I can feel comfortable with the edit. And it turns out good. So I'm gonna stop now because I don't want this to turn into such a sharp pixelated thing that I don't love it. I want to love it. I want to look at it and be like, that's water and it's splashing. And it doesn't look like I took a sharpening tool and sharpened each of those little dots. All right, I'm back. And I'm looking at the image and I'm wondering once again, if we zoom in here, you can see how chaotic this is. What if we lower it? You see this white right here, this white super brightness? Let's try this. Lower it just a tad. You see, if you look at that, we're looking right here. It adds a little bit of texture into the water. Let's go out. Now it looks very muted. So I'm going to raise those back up. Negative 36 is way too far. I'm going to raise it to negative 15, 10. Let's go negative 10. Because my goal is to make it clear that this is the brightest part in the image. Right there. Now, the other thing to notice is all these little dots and the motion blur makes them look very sharp. We have clarity at 20 right now. Let's zoomed in. Let's look at how it looks. Now, I did step away. It's been almost 24 hours since I looked at the image, and I think that's critical to the editing process, is being able to get some separation and perspective. And that's looking more fluid to me. that has the visual effect of the whites popping out. Clearly the dots are in the image. You can see all these little dots, and I love that. I think that's all I'm gonna do with this section of the image. Now, one question is this is a lot of gray. And then this is really dark right here, and this is pretty dark right here. I wonder what would happen if we lowered the exposure on this pool. And the other section is this chest piece and the face specifically. I'm going to edit those two. The chest and the leg are really going to be one brushed in mask. And let's just do that right now because it's the most simple one for me to mask out. And we'll do 100% density, maybe a 10 feather, and make it a little bit smaller. Just go down the core. We'll go up the edge, and it's just trace by number. Okay, we masked it in. Let's see what happens. Just gonna lower the exposure. Ooh. See how badly that gets? And you notice how it affects the leg differently than it affects the chest. So we'll do exposure. Let's look at that. Why is... I'm gonna subtract. Some of these darker parts so we don't affect them. And then we're going to lower the whites. We're going to go to the curve because that's what I found on the other burn, was that by lowering the whites on the curve, we could lower everything else gradually. And you notice when exposure, it just completely messed up that. But by working on the curve, that leg looks completely natural now to me. I do want to zoom in here and add more of this white mark to the mask. Maybe we'll add a feather. So that we have a softer edge. And then going back to the curve, baby. Just want to look at it. We're going to turn off the mask. We're going to look away. This line has formed, and I'm not sure what's causing the line. I don't really want the line. Let's actually add this knee so it gets the same treatment. Turn on the mask, it makes it easier. Trust me. This is just giving this knee the same dodge and burn treatment using curves. So we have a little more uniformity on the body. In places that it makes sense. That's looking really good to me. Okay, the next mask is gonna be the face. We fixed the chest so now it doesn't call attention to itself. And we're gonna create a new mask. And this mask is gonna be for the face of the horse. I think I'm just gonna use a brush. And just whoopee. so zoomed in. And we'll go to 100%. Guess my computer just run a little slow. All right. And then we're going to be doing a lot of work on this because it's important to me that the face of the horse is, I want it to be slightly higher exposed than the rest of the body so that it looks like it's getting the most sun and that the details in it are seen the most, because that's how we personalize it and that's how we signify that it is important. I'm going to fix the feather to 0, and I'm going to subtract from the mask. We're going to make sure the mask is on, and we're going to subtract just the black areas. One thing to keep in mind when using Lightroom is it's better to do small strokes that you can Control Z, that you can undo, rather than trying to do every single brush stroke in one stroke. Okay, now we're going to go to the curve. We're going to turn off the mask, and we're going to raise it up in the mid. Now this needs to be balanced with the rest of the body, right? So we don't want to raise it too high. But that looks real good to me. That makes the face look, it's a subtle thing, but that makes it look like the sun is coming this way and that the horse's face is getting it. Let's look at that without the brush mark. I think that this is pretty much done. And the only thing that I still want is two things that I've learned is, one, I want it to sync in Lightroom and then I want to check it on mobile. Two, I think I'm going to try to create a mask that targets just this pool. And I want to lower it a little bit so it matches this darkness just a little bit more. And we're going to use a luminance mask to do that. And we're going to show the luminance map.
Oh,
Well, I'm gonna subtract with a brush for the sake of time. No, 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 no. I'm gonna do the higher section first. So we're moving. Okay, so we know that the main pool is somewhere around 95. Okay, we'll go to 97 and we'll click on the bottom hand. We'll go to 95 to get most of the splash out. And then we're going to subtract with a brush.
oh no.
Let's look at this. I think it's too. I'm gonna take this off. And we're gonna just using the exposure for the sake of time. We're just gonna lower it. Yeah, there's not a lot of wiggle room. The luminance mask is. It's too targeted, and because it's so targeted, it is only catching some of the pool, which means when we change it, it gets a little wonky. Let's try using curves. No. It's just not. It's not the solution to our problem. Now I'm trying a radial mask. My computer is struggling. I'm just gonna delete this mask. Open a new mask. Radial gradient. And then we're gonna lower the feather. And we'll just lower exposure to see what it looks like. And voila. Now, I think that this image has lots of dynamic range. It has hierarchy of color. You have slightly darker blacks in the background, but the horse is the silhouetted image. I feel like the splash is captured. It is sharp, yet it is destructive. It shows all the dots of the splash without turning so sharp that it hurts your eyes. The water looks fluid. The water looks murky and chaotic. And to me, the horse looks elegant, which is, you know, it's this mixture between power and elegance and grace. And to me, this image really captures that feeling. I think it's really beautiful. I hope that you enjoyed this edit. I hope that you enjoyed this process. If you have any questions, please comment them below. I'm happy to answer anything. And thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm so glad to finish this. I'm going to look at it again and again, and we'll go from there.